Metropole TVKA across all your social media platforms. 20146 is your SMS line. Get involved. Hashtag BusinessIM. This is your economic review. Now, the Ministry of Education has directed that schools exercise extra vigilance and reinforce security to curb arson cases that are currently on the rise. In a circular, the ministry says that with immediate effect, facilities such as dormitories must be equipped with extra security. In line with this, starting 15th of February, each school is expected to convene a board meeting to assess security and discuss preventative measures in case of any unforeseen eventualities. The ministry has also taken a tough stance, directing that all arson cases be reported to the police, with the learners informed on the consequences of criminal charges and records. However, the ministry has also called for guidance and counseling and open communication channels to ease the tension in schools. This morning, to help us go through this biggest headline, we are joined by Anthony Manara, President, Kenya University Students Organization KUSO, and CEO Youth Advocacy Africa, that is YAA, and Otoa Sifuna, who is an educational expert. Let me start with you, Mr. Manara. Now, there has been a flurry of suggestions on how to prevent the arson cases that have been witnessed in Kenyan schools, ranging from return to corporal punishment and abolishing the boarding schools. Can we understand what the cause of the recent arson cases can be, and what could be a permanent solution to this?
Thank you so much, my friend. I think, first of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. I'd like to appreciate the fact that it's a fact that secondary schools, not only secondary schools, also even in some of our institutions, universities, technical institutions, colleges, there are a number of institutions which we have seen these cases of school fires, and they are caused by students, definitely. Some of them also, they might be caused because we have seen a number of transfers, massive transfers from the Ministry of Education of management. You might see also the administration of those institutions changes to maybe another institution because of maybe the delocalization or rather decentralization of teachers or even hands of schools. Normally, whenever you see these things happening, then you might realize that in some of those institutions, those hands of those institutions were not ready to transfer. So in case they can be able to either that's mismanaged, or maybe that school should have adopted the same head, the same. The school fires are caused by students. Most they might be the cause a plan which is by both.
Yes, Mr. Manara, we seem to be having a problem with your connection this morning. Let's just try work on it. I'll be coming back to you shortly. Let me cross over to Otoa Sifuna, an educational expert. I mean, there has been a flurry of suggestions. There was one big one: abolish boarding schools. Can we understand what could be the reason behind this arson in schools, Mr. Sifuna, and what could be the magic bullet to stopping them?
Thank you, Simba. I hope my connectivity is not as erratic as my brother Manara's.
Yours is fine, sir.
If you can give me a clean bill of health to proceed.
Yours is fine.
From the very onset, I want to dispute the sentiments of one brother Manara, who is trying to level the blame on school management and teachers.
Yes.
I want to put it in black and white, Simba, that the problem emanates singularly because of a failed societal role. The moral fabric of our Kenyan society has degenerated very, very quickly. And a teacher of 15 years experience like myself, I will tell you for sure that students learn from practice. They don't learn. And so when you're growing up, Simba, and I anticipate maybe we group, you realize that the uncle, the aunt, the pastor, the sheikh, All these constituted very powerful role models. But now, Simba, it's very unfortunate that the number of role models in our society is shrinking. Like that people are preaching water, taking it. Take a scenario where an uncle is oral is the uncle here. And very glaring was the caption. Pastor found preaching to a 16-year-old in his bedroom. Where do we get this? When we see this Simba, it really saddens me. Look at the politicians. They are fighting in the public glare. And what are the students seeing? They are seeing that they can also translate the same to the Kenyan schools. So for me, as Otoa Sifuna, I will tell you without mincing my words, that the problem emanates purely from a failed moral fabric.
Otoa, let me stick with you as we try to get the connection for Mr. Manara this morning again re-established. I mean, so the question is going to be again, I mean, well, students are now facing their national examinations in just a couple of days to come. We need to find a solution now, and a lasting solution. So what do we need to do, Mr. Sifuna?
Yeah, Simba, you are very spot on. In fact, I teach in high school. We have roughly 4 weeks to the summative evaluation that is coming. Part of the solution to that is we need to chart the way forward in order to stop over-reliance on what we call summative assessment, Simba. Our education system in Kenya has a problem that it waits until that learner has been to school for hoping 8 years in primary, and then is determined, the outcome is determined with a 3-day assessment. The same applies to another additional 4 years in high school, and it is the fate of that particular boy or child is determined by another 1 week of assessment. We need to leverage mostly on what we call formative assessment, so that assessment at the tail end just constitutes a small percentage that will create what we call in English a paradigm shift.
Yes.
From that exam-centered mindset, and it's going to delink a lot of the psychological stress from these learners. They are actually not going to be stressed up. Let me tell you, Simba, part of the problem we are having when schools are going down to ashes is because the young ones, the learners, have realized that exams are at the corner, and they are coming. So on that, they want to develop a strategy where some of them are communicating in the most irrational way that they are not ready for the exams. We need to chart the way forward. But singularly, Simba, what is the role of the Kenyan parent? I think that's a big question. When we ask, we try to demystify and grapple with the role played by the Kenyan parent in this country, we will be getting to the bottom of this crisis. I reckon that the Kenyan parent is doing less than 30% of his or her duty. Simba, it's a God-given duty that when you have a child, a son or a daughter, you need to walk the journey with that particular child to ensure that parentage is not just biological. Yes. Parentage is responsibility. Yes. Instilling, sitting down with your son, with your daughter, and talking. And most importantly, is instilling what we call soft values, the values of resilience, the values of hard work, the value of patience, which I think is lacking in the current generation. So for me, and I say that from an empirical approach, Mr. Simba, and I know you are a very intelligent man. You can tell the timing in which these actions in schools have taken place. It comes as a result or the backdrop of these students staying with their parents for 9 months. Even the recommendation that we abolish boarding schools is not going to help, because these students are going back to their parents. The parents are too busy. They are making money. They are back to classroom. They want to get their masters and PhDs. They have relegated their duty of parentage, and the problem will worsen. It is better if we maintain boarding schools, because the last man/woman left standing is a Kenyan teacher.
Yes. Let me bring in Mr. Manara this morning. Mr. Manara, can you confirm whether you can now get us loud and clear?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear, my friend.
Ah, fantastic. All right. Now, Sifuna says, no, it's not management. I mean, this problem is deep rooted, and is calling upon you to negate that statement, and is saying we gotta look within ourselves to find the solution. You agree?
First of all, I'd like to appreciate the sentiments, of course, forwarded here by Mr. Sifuna.
Yes.
But I would like also to acknowledge the fact that it's a plethora of causes which makes, which of course causes those school fires. We cannot just say it's because of maybe school management, or maybe because of maybe the distortion of the social fabric or something, or even more decay. You cannot say it's just that, but personally, I would like to believe that school fires are caused by very many issues. Not only that, we can even have students who are not comfortable being in school, depression. As you can see, currently we have had COVID-19. Schools have opened, and very many youths are being subjected to exams, being subjected to a lot of pressure in those schools. Most of them, the best way they can be able to maybe communicate to the government, or even communicate those institutions, because I believe most of those institutions have rules, draconian rules, which
Yes.
oppress them, and they have no way to express their views. So personally, I like to believe it's not only the moral fabric. Of course, the moral fabric is one of the causes, simply because where students come from, they lack, of course, role models. They lack a number of, you know, they lack people to guide them on how to progress. But then that is not the only cause. And then also you can see even the phones, the gadgets. There is a lot of technological advancement. Most of the cases, it's very difficult to regulate a young person owning a gadget, simply because they are always on the phone. They can be able to see what the politicians are doing. They can be able to see a number of things, how even universities, like myself, I would like to say even our own institutions in the universities, most of the ways that students communicate, they might even ban, you know, their hostels. They can ban something just to communicate. When these students from high school see that, then they can be able to see also, if university students can be able to do this, and they can be able to be listened to, they can still adopt the same. So I can say generally, we cannot just peg on one issue. We can say that it's a plethora of causes.
Yes.
It's not just one cause. It's a myriad of causes. And then again, also, I would like to also point out that in our institutions, just like the way I said before, some institutions, because I have seen, and also I think when we were discussing with Professor Magoa last week, we acknowledged the fact that these institutions, most of them, it is the school administration which has some of the enemies of that school administration. They have orchestrated a plan, which of course they use students to either do it, or even they use workers, those casual workers who come to the institution. How else would you account for maybe a jerrycan of gasoline, or maybe a jerrycan of I don't know what, to go to get into the school,
Yes.
especially the boarding schools, and then they touch those dormitories. Most of them, it's an inside plan. It's something which is orchestrated from there. So generally, those are my observations, and I would like to say also, high schools, one student, just it takes one student to ban a dormitory, and that student can be even depressed, can be not willing to be in school, can have the plans of going home, can have the plans of not being subject, just spoiling even for others. So there are a number of things which we should be able to encourage. Maybe, for instance, guidance counseling in our schools. We need to encourage also to see whether, if there is an issue. Take for instance, you're transferring a principal who has been very much hardworking, who had maybe established a business activity even in that institution, who had probably implanted himself in that institution in a very big way, and then you transfer that person probably from, let's say, Nairobi to
Yes,
Kisumu,
yes,
and he and his wife and children in Nairobi, and then you tell that person to go to Kisumu. Most of the cases, they may not be very happy, and probably they might try to prove a point maybe 1 or 2 months after you have transferred the person. You might use maybe people from that institution, like casual workers, to maybe touch a dome. And when you touch a dome, of course, you want to show the government or even to show the maybe the administration
yes,
that you guys have failed. It's me when I was there. That's when things were working. So,
yes.
like I said, there are a number of things which we can be able to attribute to that. Thank you.
Yes. All right. Let me cross over to Sifuna this morning as well. Sifuna, now there's a big one again that was mentioned by the ministry. Number one, that return to corporal punishment. I want you to either confirm or reaffirm that. And number two, that make it aware to the students that any mistake they do in school will qualify for a criminal record. Do you believe that that would scare them away from getting into this indiscipline that has led to a lot of arson cases in schools?
Simba, very brilliant question. But before I even address that, my brother Manara is quite spot on to some level.
Yes.
But I want to hold a brief for the Kenyan teacher. And these sentiments were also said by Cabinet Secretary Education, Professor George Magoha, when he said in public that in case of any dormitory going down, the first person to blame will be the teacher on duty, as well as the prefects on duty. I want to hold a brief of the Kenyan teacher, Simba. You cannot blame the Kenyan teacher for any form of behavioral delinquent that happens in our Kenyan schools. Why am I saying so? There is no teacher worth his or her salt, according to Manara's viewpoint or school of thought, that will actually want to gain mileage by causing anarchy in schools. I am a teacher, Manara, and I don't know if you pursue the education at the university. By virtue of being a student leader, you should know that for you to produce a teacher, you have gone through rigorous training that is based on values, psychology, and rationality. So to me, I will get it contrary that the Kenyan teacher has to be blamed for any form of juvenile delinquency. We have been very, very spot on to stamp authority and to meet any to nip in the bud any form of behavioral changes in schools. So for the Kenyan teacher to be the casualty in all this, again, I would say tell you, Simba, that will be very unfortunate.
Yes.
In fact, when you go to train, either at the primary level where they go to the teachers training center, colleges, and at high school where we go to the university, there is nowhere, absolutely, and I want to tell you, Simba, there is nowhere we are trained as military men or platoon commanders or corporal punchers. Yeah, we are trained on matters cognitive, how to teach the pedagogical approaches of teaching the young boy or the young girl.
Yes.
So this added duty that is being given to us by a morally decaying society is an added advantage, Simba. In fact, in matters economics, we need more allowance. We need risk allowance because the students we are teaching have all of a sudden become very risky. We are operating in a very precarious environment, Simba.
Yes.
You cannot fathom a situation where you are busy writing on the board and a wayward fella who has received little or no moral values from the parent attacks you with a machete. We need high surveillance and risky allowance to the Kenyan teacher. Number two, you have asked me, is it time to introduce corporal punishment? I think it is partly a 50-50 scenario. I remember I was in French school, Kamsinga, Simba, and our high school motto was use your common sense. Yeah, by virtue of that school motto, it could operate you to use your common sense. But most importantly, the school principal was called literally Jeshi. Do you know why we used to call him Jeshi? Because you could really be hammered hard at the hindquarters until you realize that I am on the wrong. And he kept on telling you, I am beating the mistake out of you. I'm not beating the physical person. So, for us teachers, I think corporal punishment should be a very sober conversation. If you ask Dr. Sifuna, I'll say it is not us teachers who
Yes.
should administer the corporal punishment. Because again, we are going to be in loggerheads with the students and the parents at the same time. This is a highly activistic generation.
Yes.
Most of us will find ourselves in jail. Most of us will be in loggerheads with the parents. And therefore, I will support what Kenya National Union of Teachers recommended, that we set a day, if it's a Wednesday or a Thursday, we call in the local policemen. They come and hammer these these wayward students until they know that every Wednesday it is a punishment day, and they receive thorough beating on that day.
Yes. All right, Mr. Manara, can you clear this conversation for us? 2 minutes, if you may. Do you believe that corporal punishment would be the way forward? And if these kids are made aware that any mistake you do would earn you a criminal charge, will that stop it?
First of all, I'm not a firm believer of whatever Sifuna said of maybe corporal punishment. Right now, we are dealing with we are dealing with teenagers who are very volatile, teenagers
Yes.
who have been very active on social media, teenagers who have been exposed to deep, technological advancement when it comes to their gadgets, their phones. They have seen what's happening in the whole world, in the entire world. And then these teenagers are also facing a lot of issues. They are teenagers who have a bad attitude towards schools. They are teenagers who are not interested in schoolwork. Um, Maybe having them, exposing them to corporal punishment is not something which I would advocate for, but to some extent in high schools it's very important also to punish them. But there are various ways of punishing students apart from maybe probably caning them. But I would like to maybe say that guidance and counseling departments in schools are very vital to ensure that maybe these students are on the right moral code.
Yes.
Also, I think it is the role of teachers, the likes of Sifuna, to ensure that at least when you see some students who are disturbed in school, they might be, of course, these students, some of them are radicals. And you clearly, just like the way you said, a teacher can be teaching there in front, and then a student can have maybe a machete or even something and can be able to attack the teacher. That's very true.
Yes.
We have seen that happening.
Yes.
But then again, those are extremes. Those are things which are very unlikely to happen if a school has got some good systems of handling students' problems. But then a student who entirely doesn't want school, who is being forced by the parents to go to a certain school, who probably wants. I remember there's a time when my small brother wanted a day school, and we were so much trying to convince him to be in a boarding school, and then we realized that was really so much hand on him. You may never know why a student wants to be probably in a day school or something. These teenagers face a lot of issues in their mind, and whenever you don't really understand them, you can force them to do a number of things to express their emotions. And most of the cases, it's very difficult to even take a student, a junior, a juvenile, maybe to a court of law to answer such kind of criminal activities.
Yes.
It is the institution that should answer to the same. But I would like maybe to point out that when it comes to school fires, you cannot entirely maybe say it is the role of the teacher on duty or prefect on duty should be held accountable. I think that one I so much disagree with Professor Magoa, because
Yes.
there can be external factors also. You cannot say probably You first of all, I've never seen a prefect. By myself, I was a school captain in high school.
Yes,
I have never been
Yes,
paid. I have
Mr.
never.
Yes, Mr. Major. Just in clearance, because we only have 40 seconds left.
All right. I was just trying to tell Sifuna that as a school captain, I've never been paid by the institution to
Yes.
serve those students. Then when you say that the prefect on duty should be held accountable, that is outrageous. So generally, I would like to say that is the role. It is the responsibility of the entire institution and probably even external factors. It is the Ministry of Education should come up with various ways of handling such issues in our public institution.
Pretty much. I think I would like to call Mr. Manara and Sifuna to a side chat on this conversation because we could have a lot to talk about on this as well. Mr. Sifuna, Mr. Manara, thank you very much for taking your time this morning to speak to Metropole TV on such a short notice. We take a short break here. Once we come back, let's talk about Safaricom. They are at 36. What are we talking about once we come back?